Well, hello, everyone. Welcome today to our EMBA Experience series. This is our third installation. Today our focus is on leaders in social impact and nonprofit. This has been a series that we've been doing where we focus on different industries and our different centers of excellence here that focus on different areas like finance and entrepreneurship and global management. So hopefully you've been able to attend and enjoy some of those. We're going to put in the chat right now so that you have the link to attend more of these events that are coming up. Today's, as I said, is focused on leaders in social impact and nonprofits. So we've got our executive director of Impact at Anderson, who will be the keynote to share a brief overview about our offerings around our curriculum and other programming around impact that we have at Anderson, as well as a great group of current students and alumni who work in the social impact and nonprofit space, who will be able to share their experience firsthand. So then I'm glad you can join us. A few housekeeping today. So we are going to be recording this so that we can post it on YouTube. And then there will be time for Q&A as well. This event is specific, again, to talking about social impact and nonprofit, but we do have even other events that we encourage you to attend that are, focused more on the admissions process or getting to speak with students directly. So keep an eye out for those Q&As that you can attend on a weekly basis, as well as we're always welcome to talk to you one-on-one if there's something that's personal about your a case that you want to share with us. So thanks for joining. So I'm going to turn it over to our Executive Director of Impact at Anderson, Bhavna Sivanand, and she will be presenting today and tell you a little bit more about our offerings at Impact at Anderson.
Thank you, Shannon. It's such a pleasure to be here and be able to share with you a little bit more about Impact at Anderson, which is one of the newest centers at Anderson focused on social impact and sustainability. So we've only been around for about 3 years or so, and our goal is really to underscore the importance and the power of business as a solution and a force for social change. I want to share a little bit about, what impact is and what the role is in a business school. If you're familiar with looking at other business schools as you're considering getting an MBA, you'll be familiar with the idea that there's social impact and sustainability as a focus in many business schools around the world right now. And the reason really is, traditionally it's been a focus. When you think about social impact in business, the focus has always gone to nonprofit management. But we are sector agnostic as a center intentionally because we recognize that one, it's really about multi-sectoral collaboration for addressing these large intractable issues around the world. And also because our focus is on really getting corporate America and getting the corporate world to recognize their role in addressing some of these large issues around the world. So if you're familiar with the Business Roundtable, you'll know that recently 80% of CEOs that are part of the Business Roundtable actually committed to addressing sustainability and social impact and recognize the importance of addressing those for their bottom line. And, leaders such as Larry Fink have addressed how important it is for business to think about its positive contribution to society. So that's really the tenet of what Impact at Anderson focuses on. In terms of social impact, I wanted to share a little bit of this just to kind of set the foundation for what impact really means, because I think people come at it with different understandings of what it means. And I think that's okay because it is such a broad sector and it's very new and still being determined. So there's a lot of level setting, definitions that still need to be created across the field. There's still a lot of thought leadership that's happening to establish what the center really means and what the field really means for business and corporate settings. But essentially, if you've heard any of these terms before, environmental stewardship, ESG, which stands for environment, social, and governance, and is pretty strongly present in the financial sector, social responsibility, triple bottom lines, people, planet, profit. The general goal behind impact is using the power of business to address a social or environmental unmet need or problem. So that's the basic tenet of it. And these are all the different vehicles through which social impact can be achieved. And that's really why this is such a strong presence at a business school. So, I think traditionally social impact has has meant nonprofit management, and that's the role that it has played in a business school setting. But we as a center are sector agnostic on purpose, because we recognize that first of all, you need multi-sectoral collaboration for social impact, and also it's broader than a nonprofit issue. It is a business issue for sure. It is a corporate issue, and if you've been part of the publications from the Business Roundtable recently, 80% of CEOs agree that social impact and sustainability are core and critical functions for their bottom line, and important for the future of business. So Larry Fink has put out briefs about it. It's definitely the new way of doing business. So this slide really is about kind of showing you the impact issue areas that we look at and address through various programs, and then sort of the solutions that are out there considered best practices in terms of social enterprise, corporate social responsibility. And a lot of times, we look at the issue areas and then jump to the solutions. But what I really wanted to draw your attention to here is the stuff in the middle is really why we have a Center for Social Impact at a business school at Anderson, because this is what Anderson's really good at, and the business of school education is really good at. The idea of collaboration, partnerships, teaching innovation, consumer education, capacity building, design thinking. Those are traditional business skills that are being applied to social impact solutions. So a little bit about our mission as a center. Our mission is general: to inspire the next generation of leaders to be social change makers with this lofty vision of creating a just, equitable, and sustainable world. We focus on 3 core areas: creating value for students, building core competencies through education and extracurricular experiential opportunities for society. So really kind of delivering positive value for social change organizations, and you'll hear a little bit more about that. And then for the sector, so this idea that I spoke about, this is still a very new field. There's a lot that still needs to be unpacked about how business can really be a force for social change. So contributing to the research base, contributing to the thought leadership to elevate the sector. And Dean Bernardo is extremely supportive of social impact. This is one of his, strategic priorities for the school, really sees the role of business in society as fundamental to the future of business education. So this is sort of just to give you an overview of our academics. We have a specialization in social impact, a number of courses that are accessible to EMBAs, an SMR focus area that, we source projects for the SMR that are on social impact. So there are several teams every year that focus their projects on social impact and either sustainability, conservation, or working with an NGO. And then a lot of learning experiences that we offer to students extracurricularly. So briefly, this is the specialization. If you want more information about this, you can find more information about Impact at Anderson under the Centers page on the Anderson website, and you'll have access to more details about the specialization. But we recently just did an overhaul of the specialization to increase accessibility to FEMBAs and EMBAs. So instead of having 1 required course, now we have options for 3, 1 of 3 that you can pick from for a foundational course. And we've really kind of streamlined what can count for your social impact elective. So if you do an SMR project that's social impact focused, if you take a course, if you do an independent study research project, which students have done before, you can apply that towards your social impact specialization. So if you want more information about this, contact our office and we can go over the details. But I want to highlight a couple of EMBAs that have taken social entrepreneurship courses that count towards the specialization and just their experience with it. So Priyanka took a course taught by Professor Gail Northrup that actually is part of the Global Immersion program that took students to South Africa and takes students to South Africa every other year to study social entrepreneurship in South Africa. And it's a really fascinating class because they visit social enterprises. They hear from a lot of leaders in South Africa on how essentially to be a good business person in South Africa, you have to be a social entrepreneur because there's so many social issues to address, which is, not to say that that's not the case here as well. And then Claire, who took social entrepreneurship, which is the non-global immersion class, which is local, focused on different business models for social change. I want to talk a little bit about kind of our extracurricular offerings. So we have an impact investing program where we actually take students through an entire process of what it's like to be an impact investor, sourcing, conducting due diligence, finding social for-profit ventures to invest our pool of money into. And then we also have a number of pro bono social impact consulting opportunities where we match teams of students with nonprofits and social enterprises from the community that we source. these organizations actually apply in, identifying a particular challenge that they want help addressing from MBA student consultants. And we offer this in a 3-week format, in a 10-week format, and then of course there's the capstone projects as well. And then this summer we launched a new program called the Crisis Response Corps, which identifying the special considerations of what's happening with COVID-19 and organizations that are really struggling to address their resource constraints or operational challenges. We actually matched about over 90 students with actually, sorry, for that program, we matched over 60 students with organizations, social enterprises, small businesses, startups, to help them with addressing some of their COVID-19 related challenges over the summer, especially because a lot of students lost their internships, the full-time students, but we had FEMBA students and EMBA students participate in that as well. So this is our impact investing program. This is pretty hands-on. It's a 6-month commitment. So I won't go into the details of this, but if you are interested in seeing how you could participate in this, please feel free to contact me and I can give you more information. But there's a case competition and an impact investing fund. And this is our social impact consulting programs that I mentioned. So our Net Impact Consulting Challenge actually is a 3-week case competition. And this past year, we just concluded our Net Impact Consulting Challenge for this year. I'm going to just leave it on this screen because this is the experience of an EMBA team from 2 years ago that participated in the Net Impact Consulting Challenge. Basically, you're matched with a team. It's a case competition. You won real money. You win real money if you fall into the first 3 teams, the top 3 teams. And the organizations, actually, you work with a real project in a real organization for those 3 weeks, making a real difference. And this past year, actually, we did this entire program in a virtual setting, and we had 21 EMBAs participate, which is our highest participation rate. But we typically see a lot of FEMBAs and EMBAs participate in this program because it's 3 weeks, it's short, you compete for prize money, and you are able to make a difference with a real organization in those 3 weeks. So it's sort of a win-win for everybody. And it's a short, quick experience that gives real-world consulting an opportunity as well. So feel free to reach out to me with more questions about this. But because of the virtual format, I think we were able to reach more EMBAs this year as well. And then we offer a number of events that are open to everybody, High Impact Tea Speaker Series, Impact Week Annual Conference that is open to students, alumni, industry experts, virtual coffee chats that are open to students, and then other workshops and skill building opportunities. So we advertise our programs to everybody, all the students, and it's open to anybody that can attend. And we've been recording all of our programs for the last few years and posting them online, so you have access to our content that way as well. So we actually most recently in the fall had Dr. John Fisher, who's an EMBA alum from 2009, participate in our High Impact Tea Speaker Series, and he's the Chief Medical Officer of Health for the Martin Luther King Jr. Community Hospital. So his conversation was about health equity and leadership in the time of COVID-19. So we have a recording of that we will share after the session so that you can listen to that in your own time. This is just a snapshot of what our annual conference looks like. So our Impact Week conference happens every year in April, the 3rd week of April. And 2 years ago, we had over 600 attendees. Last year, we had to cancel because it was right after the stay-at-home order. We typically do it over an entire week. We have a different thematic vertical for each day of the week. And then on Friday, we have sort of an industry-facing all-day conference with several keynotes, panels, workshops. And last couple of years ago, we actually also had a pitch competition for community-based social entrepreneurs who could pitch their ideas and win prize money for their social enterprise idea. So this was essentially non-students, community-focused, really to kind of break down the ivory tower and access more community-based social entrepreneurs. This is our team, so you can feel free to reach out to any one of us if you have any questions throughout your entire application process, or once you're admitted and you're interested in exploring more of the programs that are open to you. And that's it. So I will be around for any questions that you might have.
Great. So if anyone wants to either type your name, type your question into the chat, or feel free to, there's a raise your hand feature as well. We would love to hear if you have any questions specifically regarding the center and any of the things Bhavna just talked about. Yeah, John?
Hi, thanks so much. It was a great presentation. Gave me a solid idea of what you're doing. My question is, I come from the for-profit world, and for the next decade of my career, I'm looking at the cross-cut between what I will think of as the tools of social entrepreneurship to create change out in the world. Most interesting to me is health and wellness and the engagement economy. That's a long conversation, but my specific question is, where does the pedagogy around entrepreneurship and impact happen? Is it within the center, or is the center the application of the pedagogy, or is it like classes over here and then working with the center? Could you just give a little more detail on that? And I may just have missed it on the slides, but I would.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the centers sort of act as the overarching hub that oversees a lot of that. Classes are determined by the kind of the faculty executive committee, but we oversee the specialization. So we determine if there are gaps in the curriculum that need to be filled. In fact, we're currently working on identifying somebody that could teach a new course potentially. So we are the ones, the center is the one that oversees the courses that are offered and identifies any gaps. And then the classes are offered and opened typical to any other class at Anderson. So we kind of identify the topic areas and source the lecturers or the faculty members, and then existing tenure track faculty propose courses based on that, based on their specialty. So as an example, we have a faculty member that has done a lot of research on supply chains and using supply chains to address income inequality around the world. And we've been working with him to try to propose a new course specifically focused on sustainable supply chains, because he has a general supply chain class, but not specifically focused on that. So that's how those conversations go.
Thank you, Bhavna. Very helpful.
Of course.
Great. Any other questions specific for Bhavna? And she's going to stick around too. So definitely, if there's any other in the, from Stephen, an important component of social change organizations is interfacing with those in public office. Is that interaction an active part of the program?
That's a great question. It's one that we are working to build more. So I think our strongest focus right now is on trying to get corporations on board and really kind of identifying best practices for how corporations can be a voice for change that way. But we partner with the Luskin School for Public Affairs on a lot of programs that they offer because they're really the experts on kind of the public office piece of it. So a lot of what we're looking to do moving forward, because we're a relatively new center, we've only really been around for 3 years, and we've been focusing a lot on getting the academics up and going. But our big focus is on partnerships with the Luskin School so that we can look at how to provide both the business perspective and the public office perspective moving forward.
Thank you.
Great. All right, well, I'm going to move on to the panel, but please, as I said, Bhavna kindly is going to stay on with us. And we'll definitely, let's get in while I'm getting the slides ready. We'll get Nathan's question in. Are there any specific for-profit companies that Impact has worked with that you can tell us about?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, in terms of companies that we've either engaged as speakers for conferences or interacted with, Patagonia is one of them. Every Table, if you're familiar with them, they're a social enterprise. We've also worked with a lot of Fortune 500 companies come through the capstone programs, and some of their projects tend to be social impact focused. I'm trying to think of other companies that come to mind. Tom's we've worked with. We have an alum that is at Warby Parker, so we source students for internships and full-time jobs with companies like that as well. There's a whole list. Disney is another one that does a lot of social impact and corporate social responsibility work. And Warner Brothers, yeah, a number of them. So if there's any specific ones in mind that you're thinking of to see if we have relationships with, I'm happy to address that as well.
Yeah, and I think another thing is if you, Bhavna, if you maybe don't mind posting in the Impacted Anderson website, because that's another great place to go and look at highlights from past. Impact Week is so impressive. I mean, it's a whole week of events. And so you can definitely look at some of the past, sessions that have been hosted and who's been there.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's get into our panel today. We've got a great group of individuals that I'm excited about who are coming here today. Again, a group of alumni as well as some current students. And so today this is an opportunity to really hear their firsthand experience in the program. And so I'll kick off with some questions, but then we'll definitely, go deeper with any of your questions. But what I really like is we've got Dave here with us, Dave Fanger today, who he's someone who has a little bit of distance from the program. So it'll be great to hear from him about what that is like as you reflect back. Jesicah, she just graduated about a year ago. And then, as I said, Nadia and Sochiata, who are current students working in the more nonprofit and local government space. So let's kick it off. I'm actually going to take, hopefully you can all see their backgrounds here, but I think it's a nicer experience to see their face nice and big. So I'm going to take it off of the screen here so that everyone can be highlighted. And Dave, actually, some technical issues, I think we're in this new world. So Dave's, oh, there he is. Yay. Oh, so glad to see your beautiful face. So we're going to kick it off today. I'll call on each of you, and I'd love for you each to highlight three things. One, please tell us a little bit about your career and background. Two, why did you decide to get an MBA? And three, why was Anderson your choice? So I think it's important for everyone to understand a little bit about each panelist's background before we get into the questions. So Nadia, if you want to kick us off, that would be great.
Yes, I would love to. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today. I'm Nadia Hansen, and I serve as the Chief Information Officer at Clark County in sunny and very broke Las Vegas, Nevada. We used to be rich pre-COVID, but not anymore. And I joined Anderson because I wanted to be part of a like-minded network of people. I felt very stagnant where I was at. I wanted to be around not only just smart people, but people who are entrepreneurial, who are looking to grow, who are looking to self-develop. And so I really felt that was one of the areas that I've honestly really enjoyed, just being with the classmates that we've got in our cohort. And then UCLA just happens to be the one and only place that I applied to go to. I just decided, I'm like, if I don't get in, I'm just going to keep applying till I get in. So that was the one and only place. And honestly, I have not regretted that one bit. The people that you get to meet, the faculty that you get to meet, the resources that you have a chance to get to know and expand your knowledge, whether you're looking to start a business or whether you're looking to just get promoted in a leadership position, they have all the resources to help you with that. So definitely, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for allowing me to be part of the panel.
Thanks so much, Nadia. And we'll go to Sochiata next.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I too feel very honored and privileged to be here to speak today. My name is Sochiata and I am with the EMBA class of 21 with Nadia. I'm in the biweekly cohort. And a little bit about me, I received my undergrad in public admin and urban studies, an emphasis in city planning. And as soon as I received my degree, I actually started working with Community HousingWorks as the assistant project manager doing, and the nonprofit that I'm working in, we are a nonprofit real estate developer. We develop and own affordable communities throughout California. We're based out in San Diego, but we're all over, all the way up to Sacramento. And so started off as an assistant project manager, moved up to project management, and then I transitioned into the operational side, doing as a senior asset manager. And in the last year, just right before I got my acceptance to the EMBA program, I was promoted to director of real estate asset management. So it's been wonderful. The reason why I wanted to get my MBA, it was really personal, something that I've been wanting to do for a really long time. And it took me, let's see, how long have I been out of school? 15 years since I've been out of school, and I decided to come back. And it's really been one of the best decisions that I've made. I wanted to expand my network. I wanted to expand my perspective outside of just housing, outside of just social impact. And it's been wonderful. Have been meeting so many people in so many different industries and getting that perspective that I really wanted. So really great. The other reason why I chose Anderson, just like Nadia, it really was the only one that I wanted. I wanted to attend. And one of the big draws for me was just how it was structured with the small groups, just kind of working in a board. That's from where I come from, working as a team is how I thrive. And I was looking forward to doing that. And it's been wonderful. We're going into our SMR with the last leg of the program, and we get to pick our own teams. And so far, it's been just wonderful. So thanks for having me.
Of course, Sochiata, I will definitely let you dive into that a little bit more in the follow-up. Dave, why don't you go next? Cannot hear you. Oh, now I think we can hear something.
Okay.
Okay, now
Excellent.
we can hear you. Great.
Yeah, I had that, I guess, unmute there. So hey, great to be a part of this discussion. As I, think about my experience at UCLA Anderson, it was just so many wonderful things, and so many wonderful things have continued on from that. Right now I'm leading the U.S. business at Mercer on responsible investment. There's a heavy impact investing element to that, as part of the conversation today, where globally I focus on, that initiative as well. As further background, I was over at Pacific Life Insurance Company prior to Mercer, and there I was leading a subsidiary on impact investing. I founded that actually while I was at UCLA Anderson, and then continued to do that for years, and then joined up to now lead in the U.S. The business at Mercer that's focused on these very same topics with responsible investment. So my career has really been spent around insurance and investments as an actuary, as a CFA charter holder. And then I really, came into wanting to get the MBA just from, mentors that advised saying, it can open up more doors for managing divisions and companies, as well as, the experiences they had at UCLA Anderson. I spoke to the CEO of Pacific Life. I spoke to the president at Pacific Life. I spoke to private equity CEOs, so a number of individuals that really led me to UCLA Anderson for so many great experiences they had. And then, looking forward to saying, if you really want to take on and manage businesses and capital that people provide you, they're going to want you to have an MBA from, a very solid school. And there couldn't have been more recommendations for UCLA Anderson. So it was an easy choice for me as far as the universities, especially on the West Coast. And I think if you look at financial services and you think about past graduates, whether that's Larry Fink or Bill Gross, these are powerhouse names in the space of asset management and financial services. So that was part of the easy decision for me. And then, overall, I think that's, the main reasoning for selection of UCLA Anderson and the great things that have come from the MBA. Happy to share more as we get into this today.
Thanks so much, Dave. And when Dave was in the program here, there wasn't really even this, as Bhavna said, the program's only about 3 years old for Impact at Anderson, but Dave has come back and it's been so wonderful because he's sat on some of the panels now as that kind of alumni as you stay connected to the community. So it's been great. It's great to see you again, Dave, and it's great to have seen you at some of those events as well. All right, Jesicah, why don't you bring us home with your background and why you chose your MBA and UCLA?
Thanks, Shannon. So hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. I have a very non-traditional path, I feel like. I started out my career 15 years ago as a teacher in Los Angeles public schools, and taught for about 5 years, and then transitioned to school leadership and was a principal for 7 years. And so while I loved both those roles and loved being part of public education, I started to realize that it felt very much like Groundhog Day, where the challenges were the same every day and no longer challenging to me, or felt like something that I wanted to continue in. But I also kind of said, well, I've just spent 12 years doing this. Like, what else could I possibly do that would still be in the nonprofit education world? And I started to just think about what might open up some doors for me, and started to think that business school might be the avenue that would open up those doors for me, that would get me that foot into interviews, into positions that I normally wouldn't be able to get into. And so as I started to look at business schools, Anderson was at the top of my list, frankly, because my brother was actually in the program at that time, and he just kept speaking so highly of the professors and the network and the people. And I went and sat in on a couple of classes and really felt like, oh my gosh, this is the best place that I want to be at. And I feel like a total fish out of water. There's no way I'm going to get in. And so I went and spoke with Shannon and a couple other people, and felt so welcomed and felt so wanted, and was really clear to me that like they had made a conscientious effort to say like, no, we want nonprofit people, we want education people, we want people like you who are leaders in places that maybe we haven't yet had enough outreach in, that we want to broaden the diversity of the people that come into the program. And so after having those meetings with people, I just felt like I was really, I would be kind of the outlier, but I would be a welcome outlier. And I very much felt like that for the 2 years that I was there. People would often say like, wait, what, you're a principal? Like, what is that? Like, huh? But it was nice to kind of feel like that I was wanted, and that this was somewhere, this was an avenue that people, that Anderson was trying to reach out to. And then I will just say that having the MBA did open up those doors. So a year into the program, I interviewed for a role of at Teach for America, leading their teacher preparation program. It was actually able to transition out of a school environment into the more nonprofit world, but was able to make that leap. And I solely believe it was because I had the MBA on my resume that people said, oh, maybe she could transition over. So I'm super thankful to have that opportunity.
Thanks so much, Jessica, for sharing. And I remember that day, and it is so true. And for any of you who have done one-on-ones with this yet, or maybe watched our webinar, it is so important to us to have the people who come from such different backgrounds. So Jessica, I'm actually going to start my next question with you. You know, you have about 1 year out from the program. So I feel like that's a real opportunity to reflect on what your 22 months were like as a student. And you did come with not having really any foundational education in like business classes. So if you had to kind of summarize, like, what were the key learnings or benefits now as you transition then out of that kind of school environment into something that has more of, you know, probably where you're using your business skills on a day-to-day basis, what is that kind of reflection look like for, you know, those on the call and joining today?
Yeah, so I will say, first and foremost, I did very much feel like there was a learning curve and that I was further behind other people very often in the classroom. But then there were also moments where I felt like, oh my gosh, I have these assets that I can bring to the classroom. So I remember, you know, feeling like finance and accounting were totally foreign to me. I had no idea. This is how foreign it was. I had no idea what the difference was between accounting and finance. Like, didn't understand that there were two different things. So there was a huge learning curve there. But luckily, what I love is that Anderson sets you up into a cohort of people who are going to be there to help you, and where you can really like leverage each other's skills. So luckily there was somebody that had a great background in finance that could really help me get through those courses. And then the beautiful thing was in year 2, when we had a public speaking course, he was like, Jessica, how do I do this? Like, can I start running some stuff by you? And suddenly I was like, oh, I'm actually going to be valuable to this person right now. And I can kind of return the favor. But looking back after, you know, a little bit of a year out, the biggest learnings that I have taken away from Anderson is the network of people and the connections that you make in those 2 years are lifelong connections that are absolutely invaluable and are so priceless. I mean, even last week, I was talking to people in our course about different things. Like, we've started a WhatsApp group chat, like we're constantly on each other's Facebook pages, but these are people who will continuously be able to be there for your network for the rest of your life. You know, like I've started to look into other careers and wanted to reach out to Disney. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know 4 people who right now hold senior level positions at Disney. I would not know that if I had not been part of Anderson.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing that. Dave, let's go to you. I mean, as I said, you're a veteran of 5+ years out of the program. So when you think about the impact that it has had on you as the way you show up as a leader and kind of as you've moved in your career, even post the MBA, what are the kind of key benefits or impact it had for you?
Yeah, for me, it's had just an incredible impact. If I think about corporate finance with now Dean Bernardo and the experiences from that, and just so much on the learning sides of just the Bible of finance that he handed over, how that's helped evaluate an M&A work that I conducted in the insurance space, as well as running a business and developing a business plan and forecasting for that. So finance was a strong component of it. Business strategy. If you're running a startup, which I was doing I started in 2013 and did that for a number of years. You really got to understand business strategy, how you're going to build that team, what's that mission, vision, and strategy you're building. So that's all part of the program. And then to think about the communications course, you're going to be asked as a leader to be able to present on the moment. To groups, even pre-COVID, obviously, but even on press, on camera, you've got to be able to go. And so communications course, I think, was very valuable to get to key points and messages. That was critical. Then on the marketing side, in the online digital space, you really have to understand marketing. That was something that in my background, which was heavy math, I just didn't appreciate until going through the work at UCLA Anderson. So marketing is just so critical to distribution of your product and ideas. So that was, another key component of it. And then, of course, as many folks have mentioned, the network. I've called upon professors, students, that I was at Anderson with, as well as, the years as they've gone by. There's been many reach outs, on many startups that have occurred. And whether that's the medical field, the legal field, the technology field, there's always been a person I could reach at Anderson, either a student or a professor.
Thanks so much, Dave. Again, I think it's always important to hear that perspective again when you've some time away from the program. What was that ROI that you're still tapping into? So thank you. Nadia and Sochiata, I'm going to come to you both next, because as I said, you're our current students, and you just entered your 2nd year, and it's I think you're in school at a very unique time, obviously. And so I'd love to hear from you. How are you taking what you're learning and with challenges you're facing right now? How are you seeing that the MBA is actually really benefiting you at this time? Nadia, if you want to go first.
Sure. So I've been in the technology space for the last 20 years. And like Jessica and Dave mentioned, finance and accounting and all of that stat stuff is just not a fun background for me. And so I was getting hives thinking about how I'd have to go through this program and can't avoid any kind of financial, classes. But honestly, I think the biggest takeaways for me is the teachers are phenomenal. And they have been able to I hate to call it dumb it down, but it's really in layman's terms, where anybody from any sector, regardless of your background, can really understand the true concepts. So I feel like that's been a big takeaway, because a lot of what I do is presenting in front of a board, and we're talking a lot about financial decisions, and everything kind of comes down to money at the end of the day, whether it's, and even in a nonprofit sort of environment, is how do we take revenues and how we're building models. So it's really helped me in that arena. And the second thing I love is the flexibility. So I'm part of the monthly EMBA 2021 program, and I used to travel pre-COVID every month over the weekend, and I love the flexibility factor. We can do the classes from anywhere at any time at this point. All the teachers are there, and everybody's really trying very hard to create that level of engagement, so you don't feel that you're missing out, right? You're missing out on the networking aspect of it. So there's really been a whole lot of effort put into connecting with your peers and connecting with the staff. So I really haven't felt that we've missed much. And then the third part is, as I was last year, I was in a deputy CIO role, and I was going for a big promotion to the CIO role that I'm in now. And I felt the resources that come with the executive career coaching and helping you with interviews and helping you kind of set yourself up for a leadership position or whatever that next level might be has been immensely helpful. Like, I have gone back to Tom Larson. You probably know about him or gonna hear about him. And like Sasha Strauss, there's like branding speakers who kind of help you. The accessibility factor has been there the entire time, where you can just reach out and say, these are the things I need help with. How do I build up some of these strengths and work on my weaknesses? And so really that network of people that you can just go to and ask all of these questions is right there. So it's been incredibly helpful for me.
Great. Thank you, Nadia, for sharing that, like, in the moment examples. Sochiata, what do you have to add for your experience as well?
Very interesting. It's very interesting times, and had to quickly adjust. A lot of times too in the nonprofit world that I'm working in, regulations changed at a flip of a second, and we need to be able to adjust and move forward. And so, one of the takeaways and stories that I have with the program is, during the summer I took a persuasion class. And again, I work in affordable multifamily, overseeing third-party management companies. And when we received the final for persuasion, it was a question of, create a campaign to address COVID. How can you persuade people to follow the CDC guidelines, stay healthy, stay safe? And it's funny but not funny, because we were kind of having those same conversations at work. How do we get people to follow this? Because we want everybody to stay safe. I mean, people are gathering. I can't go and force them to do certain things. And so how do we encourage people? How do we persuade people to do that? And so that class was so applicable to current situation. And I have several stories like that too. And a lot of it really is more on, I know everybody's been kind of talking about the finance side and kind of the technical things, but really the management of people, the communication, and just making sure that we're all moving and talking and moving together. And sounds like a really easy concept, but to actually apply it with real people who are not, everyone is different, and having to manage that. It's all really applicable, and especially in this space where having to be creative, and how to deal with really crisis. How do you handle that? And how do you handle people around you that handle it different than you do? And how do you get people to really kind of stay in the level where you need them to be in order to, again, move things forward? Because it's a really high emotional time right now for everyone. And I believe that the coursework that I've had thus far has really helped prepare me for having those hard conversations, and making people and helping people think in a different manner, in a different way, to make sure that we're approaching problems differently, and that actually have some outcome, an outcome that we can capture.
Thank you so much, Sochiata. And yeah, I think you've all kind of addressed both aspects of this program, where yes, an MBA has that foundational skills that you're going to be taking. And, Dave did such a great job kind of even walking through kind of the accounting, finance, and operations and those things. But Absolutely, Sochiata. I think what makes executive MBA programs unique and something we really try and stress is building in those leaderships and management and soft skills. And so I'm so glad to hear that, you know, in this moment, you feel that you're able to really tap into those, because I think it's even hard to teach for this, because who could have expected something, you know, kind of so extreme, but I'm glad to hear that you're putting it in use. So I'd love to open it up for Q&A now. You know, we have a little under 15 minutes. So please, this is, you know, whether you want to type again in chat, Bhavna's still here as well if you have any questions for the center, but let's hear what your questions are. So either, you know, raise your hand or put in the chat would be great. All right, Ashley. Any of the panelists, she says, how has the impact curriculum specifically supplemented, complemented your career journey in social impact? So I think if, you know, I don't think anyone here on this specific panel has taken the impact elective, since those are kind of still something new, but I don't know if any of you have participated in any of those or can comment on any of the specific curriculum that helped. Bhavna could join in on that as well, but any of the panelists, do you have anything to add on this one?
Shannon, is this in relation to impact curriculum focused on environmental, social topics, like in the net impact clubs and things like that?
Yeah, exactly. So just, I think the question from Ashley was, as did it complement, did you learn in that space? You are already all working kind of in this nonprofit social impact space, but were there things that you learned in the curriculum maybe that complemented those, even around the social impact or sustainability or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just quickly say, I mean, I wasn't part of that curriculum, but that is definitely the space I'm working in today, and I believe is, you know, what is going to occur in this decade of delivery, even under the new you know, president, and what we're seeing as his top advisors that he's selecting on climate. So impact investing has had tremendous growth. Even the Global Impact Investing Network is talking about the surge in growth there, up to, I think this year, close to $1 trillion in assets. We've seen just an incredible growth on environmental, social governance issues from the Principles for Responsible Investment. There's now over 3,000 signatories aligned with that. So tremendous amounts of support is taking place in the impact space and growth there. So I think it's an important topic on the curriculum side. And then there's been some great work from George Seraphim out of Harvard on this topic of impact as it relates to finance. So the tying together of impact curriculum into finance to see how do you adjust cash flows and valuations is, I believe, a next step, because there's so many externalities there to think about in the finance area. So yeah, I think that's a very important subject.
Yeah. And then, I mean, maybe if any of you, because I know some of our cases, even some of the cases that our faculty will present as part of the class, has to do with this space as well. Can any of you think of how maybe that type of lesson even added to how you think about your kind of roles? Nadia, I saw you on mute, so I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Sure. No, I'm happy to jump in here. So like Bhavna mentioned, there's a net impact program, which is a 3-week pro bono consulting engagement that we do with a nonprofit or social entrepreneurship company. I took part in that recently, so that was just maybe a few weeks ago. It was a completely new learning experience for me, even being in the social sort of entrepreneurship world. And I think what the biggest takeaways were, you get to work with a real client, you're solving a real problem, you're defining the scope with somebody. So it's kind of like it's a consulting engagement, but you're going to have very specific outcomes and deliverables at the end of it. And then it's more of it's a judging sort of competition. And then it's fascinating because you're trying to get a view of, here's what the client's expectations are, and then how do you kind of match them with what the judging criteria might be and the evaluation criteria. And some of those questions would be around, how would you grow or scale a company that you're working with? And so it's very real life, where you're actually in it with your customers. And so you get to use everything, all the strategy concepts that you've learned as part of the curriculum, to put that together in less than 3 weeks. So I felt like it really brought home, oh yes, it totally makes sense. I can relate to why we would want to talk about a growth strategy, or why would we want to talk about economies of scale, or why all of these concepts that we've been learning, you can apply that within a very short period of time. So I felt like that is one of those things that it's not there just from a curriculum perspective, but that's something you can take with you the rest of your career journey.
Awesome, Nadia. I'm so glad to hear that, yeah, you participated in that. So thank you for sharing.
I
Other?
did one. I
Yeah,
just wanted
please,
to say
Bhavna, please
one.
add.
I just wanted to add one thing to your point about cases, Shannon. We're actually working with faculty right now to do a mini audit of the cases that are currently being used in the core curriculum to see whether there's cases that would make sense to swap out, because there's a whole host of cases that are starting to come out that are focused on how corporations are starting to make some of these tough trade-offs and decisions about social impact and sustainability. So we're looking actively to see if we could coach faculty and guide them on how to swap out some cases and really start to look at how many cases can be incorporated into the core curriculum that's focused on social impact and sustainability. So it's very timely for you to mention that, Shannon. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that effort as well.
Great, thank you. Any other? Yeah, John, do you have a question? Please unmute, thanks.
Thank you, and I'm going to try and get this right. I'm a strategist by training, and all of us, I think, are seeing a world in which data and data feedback loops is radically altering everything from strategy setting, operations, and delivery. And my question to the group is, from your classwork and from your interactions and project-based work, did you feel like there was, that you could form an integrated view of, let's call it a management cycle or some sort of, approach, whether it was from the marketing perspective or the strategy perspective or operations, that embraces, I think what I'm seeing in the world is greater bleed between the disciplines, because the data itself is now needing to be coordinated by so many different groups around giving the customer the best outcome, or if it's an environmental project, the best return for the investment. Management's changing, and the approaches are. How did that get invested, or did you feel that in your experience at Anderson? If I wasn't clear, maybe somebody could clear my question.
No, yeah, I think it's just really data is becoming so important in the space, and so how did the curriculum complement that? Maybe Jessica, I'll call on you, since you said you kind of came in with the not knowing of the data. Like how do you now maybe face how you think about incorporating and be able to speak to that based on the curriculum?
Yeah, I think it was interesting because in the first year and a half, it was just pulling little pieces and like kind of dipping your feet into different pieces. And then once we went into SMR BCO, you basically had to like take all of your learnings for the last year and a half and make it happen. So I was part of a BCO where we were trying to launch a business. So there was a lot of like management planning and thinking about like, what is the cycle and how do we pivot? And so we originally went in thinking we were going to do a startup for an education software idea. And as we started to go through that management or through that loop, we realized the market's not there, like the price point's not right for what we wanted to do. And we actually pivoted to the restaurant industry, which we like did through a lot of research, like that was the booming place to go. I mean, this was all pre-COVID, but at that time it made sense. So I really feel like during the BCO or SMR is where you like put all those pieces together and then figure out like, how does this work and how do I pull from the right places to make this work? Does that answer the question, John? Okay, great.
I might
please add. Yeah, no problem, Dave.
Yeah, I was going to say, coming from the fintech space right out of the program at Anderson, I just found how important it was to think about engineering and data science with the teams I was working in. So you'd have an online site. So on your digital marketing, you had to watch what kind of engagement was taking place on advertising, what's taking place on the site. Designers were taking that into account, visual designers, as to what's really being attracted from different design elements on the site. And then bringing that into the operational and business side of it, where are we seeing the revenue? What products are they buying online? So data was such a key component of it, and tracking it and storing it, and then going over to engineers to say, okay, these are the changes we're going to have to make here to product and site and our ads in general on the digital marketing side. So that was all data driven, real time, and you've got to just make sure you have an understanding of the pulse of that. So I think that's all part of in the program, the coursework and also the teamwork, because you're working with this cross-functional team that has to be agile, prototype driven, design thinking driven, and I think that's part of the teamwork that takes place at Anderson.
Thanks so much, Dave, for that. Any other, I will say, because people I know probably are going to have to drop off, but we might have time to sneak in one more question if you have it and want to put it in the chat. But I do want to just thank everyone for joining today, as well as our panelists. It's so good to see your faces and get to be here in space with you. For those that are joining, our deadline, we did just have our first deadline pass yesterday, but we're on a rolling admission basis through May. So please continue to engage with us, ask questions, and we hope if you heard things today that will make you want to apply and be part of this community. So thank you, and be well to everybody this holiday season.
Thank you for having us. It's great seeing everyone.
Great seeing you too. All right, looks like that probably was it, and hopefully just a beneficial session. So thank you, everyone, and be well.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.
Bye.